Now that we have walked through all the usage scenarios of how to form a project, how to assign resources to projects, and how to run inquiries and reports to see how resources are utilized, let's look at the fundamental setup steps that are required to get you going. How do you set up resources? How do you fine-tune scheduling parameters? How do you loan resources from one legal entity to another legal entity? And how do you define prices for the resources? Let's jump into a demo. Here, you can see the list of resources that can be scheduled in this legal entity. I can create a new resource at any point of time, where I choose an existing worker that has an employment relationship with this legal entity, in this scenario, Julia. I can set a calendar for Julia that will be used for scheduling purposes. And I also set her period code for timesheet purposes. Right after that, you can see that Julia will be a schedulable resource here. So I can look into all the attributes related to Julia from here. I can see the default category that will be used to define pricing if we cannot find the price on an activity or task that Julia is assigned to. I can see the calendars, and all the required information about Julia is here, and I can always change that. So I can also set up pricing for Julia. I can go here, create a new record, effective date today. I can define that what is the pricing for Julia. I can say for every single worker or all workers, I can define a pricing for Julia. And I can select it for a specific project, for example, and give it a given price. For example, I would say Julia's cost price will be $100. So this is a one-stop shop to create resources and being able to associate the attributes with the resource that are required to schedule the resources. Right from here, you can hard or soft book resources. You can also look at all the transactions that have been reported by this specific resource. In this scenario, you can see the resource has reported hours against different projects and different category of work. So everything you need for a resource can be basically looked at right here. Right from here, you can also look at the competencies. In a couple of examples, we looked at the competencies of resources. Let me look at the skills for that specific resource. So no skills have been modeled for Armando Pinto. I can always use the repository of skills, and I would say this resource has budgeting skills, and as of today, this is an active competency for this resource. I can specify the certifications that this resource has. For example, in this scenario, the resource should be PMP certified. And by setting that, this resource will show up as a match when project managers or other type of resources are looking for a resource, education and also project experiences. So everything can be done here. By just mouse hovering on the resource, you can see that when is their next available date, which current projects they are working on, what's their status, and lots of other information that you might need. And you can also define the cost prices associated with the resources and all of the information that you need. Along with that, we talked about resources that are coming from another legal entity. I am in the context of SUSP, but I still can see resources from Contoso, France. Let's have a quick look at how it works. So the concept of a loaning LE in this scenario, France, to be able to enter into intercompany transaction, the very first thing that loaning legal entity needs is that in general ledger module, they need to identify basically what they want, what borrowing LEs they want to work with. For that, I will go here and I would say intercompany accounting in general ledger. As you can see, SUSB, which was the borrowing legal entity or the legal entity that can use resources identified in this loaning legal entity, has been specified here with credit and debit account that will be used later when payments need to happen. The second step is in the loaning LE, in project management and accounting module, you also need to specify prices for resources and the prices that you want to sell the resources to another LE for. So to do that, you come to transfer prices. And for example, in this example, I have specified that for everybody, I want the price to be $450. You can always insert new records here. But in a simple manner, I have set any resource for all the transaction type that is used by SUSB, the price will be $450. So that's the basically the cost price for the borrowing legal entity. And the most important parameter that you need to set in the loaning legal entity to enter into these intercompany transaction is that you need to also enable this flag. So when you enable it and you have done the setting in the general ledger and the transfer pricing, the resources that you have specified will show up as schedulable resources in the borrowing legal entity. The next setup that I would like to talk about are scheduling parameters. So if I go to scheduling under parameters in project management and accounting module, you will see the default working calendar. You will also see the standard skill match thresholds that you simply say the resources that show up should have all the competencies that I want, and competencies being education, skill, certification, or the threshold for availability. Don't show resources that are below 50%, have below 50% availability. So that directly impacts the search results and the resources that you will see. And with that, you're doing all your fine-tuning the scheduling parameters that you need. And the last and very important piece of setup that you need is the concept of roles that we discussed. So under project management and accounting, under setup, if you go to scheduling, you can set up all the project role templates that you need. I am in the loaning legal entity that nothing has been set up. I switch back to Contoso Consulting. I go to project role template, and you can see some of the standard templates that have been defined here. A project manager in this legal entity needs to have these skills. I can always use and add additional skills. If I need my project managers to also know some accounting, because most of the engagements are in accounting field, I can add it here. If I need a specific education, I can add them here. If I need a specific certification, if you remember in our scenarios, we had a lot of PMP as a certificate. I can add them here. A senior developer could always be having some standard competencies like skills. Again, if you want to add more, those are standard skills that you can add, right? For example, I had HTML, I want them to do interviewing other senior developers because we will hire more people. All of those can be modeled here and obviously can be overridden on every single project when you add these role templates. With these settings in mind and done, you are good to go and set up your projects and have a successful delivery and healthy resource utilization.